the idea of getting something in writing is very important both ways, because if they send you a contract, they've gotten what they want in writing, and you need to understand that. So you need to really go line by line. You need to really fine tooth comb any contracts that come to you, and you need to understand them. And if you don't understand lines, or if there's something that's ambiguous, you can go back to them and say, I don't understand this. And if they describe it to you and you still don't understand it, what you should ask for is, can I have clearer, something clearer put in this contract? And if they won't do it, if they can't explain it and you can't understand it, you shouldn't sign it ever. Hey, this is Writer's Row. I'm DC Wright-Hammer.
And I'm David Gane.
And I'm Mandy Lawson. I am the author of the Laura Kate London series that is on Amazon.
If you like the content we've been putting out, both on YouTube and on podcast, make sure to subscribe to our channel here on YouTube and subscribe to the podcast on Apple, Google, Spotify, and several other podcast outlets.
What are we talking about today, DC and Mandy?
So we wanted to bring Mandy on. We wanted to talk about the threat and the possibility of being scammed as an independent author. I think one of the things that is very difficult as an independent author is to know where you should spend your money and where you should spend your time and things like that. And often we might see somebody advertising services, or somebody might reach out to us and offer some kind of service to us, whether it be publishing, editing, design, and things like that. And it's difficult to know who's legitimate. It's difficult to know what is a good deal. And so we reached out on Twitter to try to find people who have very poor experiences with some services that were provided. I want to make it clear up front, we're not trying to name names. We're not trying to out people. This is not cancel culture, I think is what the term is nowadays. However, we want to discuss a story where somebody was scammed, Mandy, obviously, and then talk about how people can avoid that, some warning signs, and what people can do to try to avoid that kind of situation. So ultimately, in the beginning, we want to start off with Mandy. You have a story to tell. Can you walk us through what happened to you and exactly, how you responded to it? And we'll kind of have some questions from there.
Okay. So when I first wrote Party Central, which was in 2009.
Which is your first book, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I was approached with a small publishing company. And they were like, we want your book. We want to sell it. We want to, do great things for you. Here's a contract. And of course, I was really young and I was like, this is awesome. This is it. This is my big break. And so I signed a contract and I did not read through every little piece of the contract because, I was like 20. So there was a lot in there that just was basically like, hey, we're going to print this for you, but that's about it. And so I had to end up paying for my editor through this publishing company. I had to pay for the design of the book. I had to pay for marketing. If I wanted it to go to ebook, I would have had to have paid for that. Every little step had to have been paid for by me. And I did not receive not one check from this publishing company.
Oh.
After selling, I think I sold like 150 copies. And that was it. Like I never received any check from them for, the pay in the book cost like almost $30. I think it was like 27 something dollars. This was hardback. And so I to this day have not received a check from these people. So I paid like $2,000 for my editor. And here's the worst part is like being young and inexperienced, and I send my book to this editor and he sends it back with 4 changes. 4.
What? Whoa. What?
Yes. He was like, it's wonderful. I've never read such, such great blah, blah, blah. And I was like, sweet, I'm amazing, and I was, and so I literally paid $2,000 for a guy to pick out 4 grammar mistakes. And there was more in there. There was things that needed to be, I mean, he was supposed to edit everything. So there was a lot that went into that. So then after, like, it all comes out, like, I paid for this design of the book and I really didn't like the design. Went back and forth. And it's cute. I mean, it is cute, but it's not what I really wanted. And so after that's all finished and I thought this is going to be great, it's been edited and now it's got a hard cover. And even I went on the local news stations and that was cool and all this stuff. And I thought, here's my big chance. And then I got it in a bookstore and then it just went flat because marketing is the biggest part of selling books. No one tells you that when you sign contracts and all this stuff. And so I was completely scammed by a small little publishing company. I'm not going to say a name, but they totally, and every email I get was, hey, we want to sell your book. Here's our price range of getting it out there. And I'm like, you're going to make money if you sell my book. Isn't that how that's supposed to work? And so just being really young and just getting that thrown at me just completely just destroyed the confidence that I had in the story. And I gave up. I was like, forget it. I can't afford for the book to do well. And that's kind of how.
When you did you actually sign a contract with them?
I did. After going back and reading through it, the contract basically says that I had to sell like 1,000 copies before I would see any money.
But you paid for everything.
I paid for everything.
And did you pay for the printing of the book as well?
Yes, if I purchase, and like through Amazon, we can pay our author copy price. This place I had to pay full price for every book that I bought. And so I would constantly try to be buying books because when you go do signings, you need copies. Well,
yeah.
Here I'm paying $30 a copy for my own book that I wrote. And so, and it would take forever, which, I mean, that's true for a lot of places. But it was very disheartening because I worked so hard on something and I thought that this was, that they were really going to do something with it. And then it was constant, hey, here's an email. We would love to market your book. Here's our price for marketing here, here, and here. Of course, like 2009 was really the cusp of Facebook and it really wasn't huge yet. And it really even wasn't a place to sell things. So I don't know where they would have marketed other than, just local, bookstores and places like that. But even then the bookstores couldn't take my books because it wasn't through, I was able to sell through Hastings. I don't know if you know what company Hastings is. They had like books, movies, video games, that kind of thing. Kind of like a Barnes and Noble, sort of. But I was able to put it through there, but it was because it was a local store. And so they were able to just locally add barcodes to it. But in fact, I think September, whatever it was, September 2009. So, 10 years ago. That was a long time ago. But
wow.
Yeah. So I was just, that's my huge warning is for people who are wanting to go traditional to just be careful of those small. I mean, I love small publishing companies. I think there's a lot of great ones out there if they're doing it correctly. But this company clearly isn't. You shouldn't be charging your clients to do things that you're offering to do. So,
also, who retained the rights to the book?
I got to keep my rights.
You did.
Those belong to me. The only thing I wasn't allowed to take with me is any files that they gave to me, or any files that they use, like when they I got to keep my book, which doesn't really matter. the file before the editor got to it. I got to
Yeah.
keep that file, which after 4 changes, big deal that I didn't get to keep their copy.
Right.
I didn't get to keep the book cover, any of that, any of those. But the rest of it was mine, because I did, before I decided to re-release it on Amazon, I did contact them and ask them, was I allowed to do that? And so they were like, yes, it's yours. You just can't use any file that we've given you. I was like, perfect, because I don't like any of them anyway. So,
Right.
sayonara.
So the one thing I have to always say, kind of the counter argument, is that I work with a partnership publisher, and I highly adore her. So, similar kind of setup for myself. We retain all the book rights. We do pay for all the edits. I always look at it as we approach her for her services, right? We approach her for her editing, her book building, everything like that. She does put it under her publisher's name, but and she does get us into bookstores, online, everything, and we do pay for the EPUBs because we are not interested in doing the work. We did it once, it burnt us out. We didn't want to do it again, so that we could focus on the marketing and the selling of it. So she handles that side of it. We handle the marketing and the selling of it. But she does also get us into awards competitions. She does get us into through Canada. You can easily purchase us. So it's, yeah, I've heard this kind of a story before, and I agree. There's a lot of dangers in it, especially like, 4 edits for that many changes or for that much price is really bad. But
I can understand that, small publishers they're going to need to charge for things. I mean, I understand that because they're a small company. And, but I feel like in this case, this was more of a promised things that weren't really given to me without me having to pay. I assume, trying to understand what they were giving me, assumed, oh, they're going to market it. All I have to do is this, and this. And I ended up having to do way more.
Much more.
If I wanted to add this to it, I had to add this price. And if I wanted to market this way, I had to add more to the price. And it just became very pricey. But with no return. It would be different if I was seeing something come back at me, like, hey,
absolutely.
I'm going to make that back. It's okay if I invest in this because I'm going to make it back. Maybe if that makes
we do see, like, we get monthly reports from ours. So, and payments out when it comes. So I should also clarify that it's not just, hey, you made money, but you've never seen the money. So, yeah. And I think that's dangerous. When we were also looking for a publisher to move to, we did a couple of phone calls with some of those kind of companies, and it felt more like the scammy salesman who once they made the sale, we were off their desk and we just kind of got lost in the system. And that was the other reason why we loved our publisher, is that when we called her, she and us sat down, had a cup of coffee. She brought us book samples, said, this is the work I've done. I can pretty well pick up my phone and text her right now, and I'll get probably a response either tonight or tomorrow morning, sort of thing. So there's it's a different kind of connection. So I just want to, like, I know this is about scams and stuff like that. I just kind of want to throw that out there that
you have a relationship. This was not a relationship. This was here is a pre-made email that we send everybody, and this is sending you as a response, and hey, we'll get back to you in like 3 weeks. It was, it was very salesy, impersonal. I could never get the same person to email me back. So I never built a relationship with anybody. So I couldn't even keep contacts on my email to say who was emailing me, because I'm like, oh, well, there's Dan, and here's a Sue and a Liz and a just
That sucks.
random people from all over. And it was just very just impersonal. And that's just my take on it.
Well, and so I think we put all this effort into writing our books, right? So a lot of times it's months or years, and especially your first book, you're putting a lot of yourself in it a lot of times. It's not just, you're not just writing it quickly and passing it off. And so I think what can happen, we're very exhausted, we're very tired, we're very ready to hit the publish button when we get to the end of any book, but particularly our first or second book. And so, when you get an email like that, or when you reach out to a handful of people and there's something that seems like too good to be true, or like they're very much commercialized and like, no, we got this, we'll get your book, we're going to publish all this stuff. That's when you really have to, even though you are, you might be frazzled from writing the book and maybe, doing your self revisions and everything, you got to take a step back and look at the things that are in front of you, especially now. It's 2019. I think back in 2009, that was probably really easy for companies to come in and take advantage of people. More so, we're 10 years into, there's a lot of people who are self-published. There's a lot of people who are going with small publishers now. And, the word of caution is finish your book and then figure out what your options are, and not commit to anything until you are for sure, whether it's talking to people that have gone the path you're considering, or looking at reviews, or looking at sometimes forums where people are talking about different publishers or different services that you might go for. And so that's kind of the thing I want to mention to people right now, is that you have to realize that when you're done writing the book and you're ready to start the publishing process, it's a new phase, and you've got to bring fresh eyes and a fresh mind to that. And so don't feel bad if you take a month off, if you take 2 months off, you take half a year, whatever it is, to really give yourself a chance to shift gears from I'm a writer to now I want to publish what I have written. And that's going to give you the opportunity to be less susceptible to some of these things, like what you described. Not only a publisher who might take advantage of you, but an editor who also could possibly take advantage of you. If you're an indie author going to an editor before you publish, you want to make sure you get a quality editor. And so you want to give yourself enough time, and you want to be focused enough to know that you're getting somebody who's quality before you sign any contracts, for sure, but before you even consider going with them.
Yes, I agree, because I didn't know. I mean, even with the first two books, I just didn't know. And so I think it's just important for indie authors, especially, to do their research and know like what they need to do prior to hitting that publish button, because I hit mine too fast. I was like, oh, it's really not that ready. So just knowing, like, being careful, like making sure that the editors have lots of reviews, like people are bragging about them, ask questions. Don't be afraid to like look and see who their authors are and message them on Twitter or whatever and say, hey, you use this person, do you really recommend them? Or because my editor with this last one, she really was a gem. I mean, she was super sweet. She was able to work with me on payments. She was just really, she was just a doll. I mean, she was going through and she's like, hey, I don't really think line edits are going to be your best choice. It's going to be expensive for you, and we're really not finding tons of mistakes in that spot. Let's do developmental edit. So knowing there's different kinds of editing too. It's not just finding your grammar mistakes. I mean, look for proofreaders for that. And there's tons of people who want to beta read and to check some of those things for you too. So just be aware, check reviews, and for book design, be very careful with that too. There's lots of pre-made templates, which are really awesome, but sometimes those might not be your best bet. So just be careful that you're not using someone else's work. So.
Also, the other thing that's a good kind of rule of thumb, and I thought about this with Meg and CD in our conversations that we've had in the past with editors. See if we'll add that in the doodly doos down below. But getting some price quotes from some of these editors or book designers, right? If you are doing something in your house, like you're going to get a paint job or whatever, you get a couple of quotes. Or if you're going to do construction, you get a couple of quotes. Same thing with your book. Get a couple of quotes from a couple of different editors or book designers or whatever. Also see what they're offering, see, that kind of thing, have those kind of conversations, not just from other people, but from them as well. And see what they are how they approach things. Those conversations are really good. And, you want to just get the work done, but getting out there and talking to some of these people can be really helpful. So, and also know what you're paying for. Like if they give you a quote and it looks really good, like you said, they may want to do content editing, but really, and you really only want proofreading or vice versa or whatever, right? Know what you're paying for and kind of really consider that kind of stuff.
Well, and so the idea of getting something in writing is very important both ways, because if they send you a contract, they've gotten what they want in writing, and you need to understand that. So you need to really go line by line. You need to really fine-tooth comb any contracts that come to you, and you need to understand them. And if you don't understand lines, or if there's something that's ambiguous, you can go back to them and say, I don't understand this. And if they describe it to you and you still don't understand it, what you should ask for is, can I have clearer, something clearer put in this contract? And if they won't do it, if they can't explain it and you can't understand it, you shouldn't sign it ever. I'm just going to put that out there. If you don't understand something, don't sign it, because the chances of you not understanding it and it being something completely different than what you were hoping for are very good in those scenarios. So if you don't understand it, do not put your name on it. You can go back. I'm not saying that anybody's doing anything shady in a contract, but if they can't explain it to you to where you feel comfortable, then you should really pass. You don't have to be mad about it. You don't have to be offensive to them about it. You can just say, I don't understand this. I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to sign this. I'm not going to be able to do business with you. Nothing personal. I just don't understand this contract. So that is something you can always do. You don't ever have to sign a contract. I think the other extreme, what?
Oh, sorry.
I think the other thing is, if something does seem really good, it seems like it is the best contract you could ever get, and you totally understand it, you're like, this is great, I would still want to make sure that it is as good as it seems. It's in writing, you think you understand it, and consider getting a second opinion, consider getting a second set of eyes on it, and in some cases, possibly paying somebody like a lawyer to look at it as well. That can be very expensive, that can take up a lot of time, but by doing these things up front, and by not locking yourself into something, you're setting yourself up to be in a better position later on. And you're setting yourself up to make more money, to be more successful in the future, and you're not locking yourself into a contract that you thought you understood or you whatever. You just want to make sure that things are as good as they seem, and if they're not, you want to make sure you don't sign it just because it's put in front of you.
One thing we found out when we got our first contract, we have a lawyer that's a friend, so we get some nice work. Actually, he's my writing partner's friend, not mine. So we get some help from that, and he covers contract law, so it's even better. And we gave him a copy of a contract. He read through it, and he basically said it's really just a boilerplate template that the person has pulled off the internet, and these things could be tweaked. This language could be tweaked a little bit better. And I think that's probably what's going to happen with a lot of these editors and other companies. They are just pulling boilerplates off. They don't know it very much either. So they don't even know what they're committing to or whatever. And, it's always good to have that kind of professional set of eyes. And just on top of that, he gave tweaks, and now that is the contract that is being used with the tweaks. So
I think a lot of times people who are out to scam other people know like who they're looking for, and a lot of people are naive. I was very naive. I just didn't know. I didn't, I would kind of read through it and I'm like, kind of sounds like a good deal. And really, like looking at it, it was just too good to be true. What I'd read. So, getting that second set of eyes, especially people who are professional, is a good idea.
I also think that we are really good marks, being new writers, excited to publish. We just want to get our words out there and everything, and it's giving that, like, okay, let's slow things down, is a really good way to step in front of that danger.
Right. So I think at this point in the episode, let's start talking about some warning signs that you might be getting scammed or something is too good to be true. And so I think one of the things that always jumps out to me is limited time offer. So you'll get an email that says, hey, we heard about your book. They might even call you by name. They might know the name of your book, and they say, we'll market your book for the next week or month or whatever at this promotional price, but you only have until Thursday, and this price is going to go away. Ignore those. Ignore those. Put those in your spam folder and move on, because they're using that urgency, that limited time offer, to try to evoke emotion from you and jump on it. And those types of services, they might be legit, but I am very turned off by that way of trying to market and take advantage of people to some extent, because it does make you feel like they're using your name, they're using your book title, and it feels very personal, but they give you the boilerplate template and they give you that 2 or 3 day time frame. You got to pass on those. There's better ways to market your book. There's better ways to use that money. And I don't want to encourage companies who are trying to basically create like false scarcity. Like there's this false scarcity of this deal and you better get on it now. That, in my mind, is not very legitimate. You shouldn't really go with that. And so that's one example that I wanted to give. And so I'm curious what you all think is some other warning signs to watch out for.
I've gotten some DMs before from certain people on Twitter that will say, hey, I just retweeted your tweet. I want you to go retweet mine. And then they send you another big, long message saying, hey, guess what? This is what we offer. And so it's just very thrown in your face. And, hey, guess what? I did this for you. Now you need to do this for me. That's very, it's very sketchy. And so, and I get a lot of those, like every few days, hey, I just retweeted your tweets or your pinned tweet, whatever. I'm like, so do a lot of people. Big deal. I'm not going to pay you to do it again. I feel like that's some warning signs, is when you really start getting DMs from people wanting you to buy their services, because that's kind of sketchy. I feel like if you're a decent company, we're going to see you on Twitter. We don't need you in our inbox. So
it's like getting homework that you didn't know you was due. Like, it's like, hey, I retweeted your tweet. Now you have to retweet my, like, I didn't sign up for this. Thanks
Right.
for retweeting my tweet. Like, sorry, but that's not cool.
Yeah. Even if they have a lot of followers, be careful, because you know that's not okay to do to people.
And it's trying to leverage guilt, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the moment that somebody starts leveraging that guilt, that's when your warning sign should be like, yeah, no, I don't feel right about this, right? Same thing with, that warning sign of uh an offer too good to be true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, slow it down and figure out what's going on there. um I've never experienced this in being an author, but I feel like it's a scam just waiting to happen. I once got scammed out of money. The person said they were going to do some work in my house. They said I need to go buy some supplies. This is how much, and it was all going to be on the down low. And I gave them, I forget what it was. It was like $200 or whatever for supplies. He disappeared. His cell phone disappeared.
Yep.
Everything disappeared. And yeah, so I almost feel like that, do a little bit of a down payment ahead of time, kind of scam. And even, in the digital world, it can so easily happen. Like, what do you guys have? Venmo or whatever it is, right?
Yep.
That kind of stuff where it's just like, yeah, send the money and then that account disappears or whatever, right? There's scamminess out there, so just being cautious of the quick pay for whatever.
Well, and I think as independent authors, any company saying, like these vanity publishers who are like, pay us $3,000 and we'll publish your book for you. There might be some legitimate ones out there. I personally have not found them. Um, if somebody is going to publish your book for you, you should not have to pay for it. You should not have to pay for editing. You should not have to pay for the book cover. You should not have to pay for anything. What you end up paying with is your rights to the book.
Right.
That is your leverage in that agreement when you're signing with a publisher, is you're saying, I will give you the rights to print the book, create the ebook, create the book cover, and you have rights to that, that you're giving that to them without any exchange of money, on the understanding that they will sell the book to recoup their money from printing the book, ebook, cover, and that also includes royalties back to the author. Now, those royalties are going to be different than someone who self-publishes, because they're taking on all of the risk of publishing your book by putting the money in for the print, for the ebook, for the cover and everything, and the editing. They should be covering the editing as well. So there, you might get less back per book because you're splitting your rights with a publisher. However, you are going in with no money up front. In most cases with a publisher, they're basically saying, you're good enough, your story's good enough, your book is good enough, and we want to take you on. We're going to sign that contract. You just need to make sure as you're going through that you are seeing that that's the case, that they are going to cover what they say they're going to cover, that's in the contract, that you are going to get paid on how you think you should get paid, and that is in the contract. And if it's not in there, as I said before, you don't sign it, you ask for changes, you delay, and if they disappear, if they are like, no, this is a limited time offer, those are all warning signs. That shouldn't make you more excited or more likely to sign. That should give you a reason not to sign.
We're like, yep, we've solved it.
Yeah.
No more scams on the internet.
Right. Other warning signs that
it's true. If you're going to be in a publishing company, the author shouldn't have to be putting up all this money, because the publishing company's whole deal is selling books. And so if they want to make
let's clarify, the publishing company that is taking over the rights of your book, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
If you've taken my rights from my book, then you're going to want to make money from that. So if you're gonna invest in it, you need to do it without taking money from me.
Absolutely.
And so I was going to point out prices that are really low, you need to vet, basically. It might be an editor or somebody or designer, somebody who's just starting out, so their prices are really low. They're trying to build their clientele, and that is legitimate, but you just want to do your homework on those. Prices that are really high, why are they so high? Again, do your homework. Is it because they're super experienced and you're going to get a more quality product out of it? Then you need to decide, is that more quality product really worth the extra cost? Am I going to sell that many more books as a result of spending this extra money to get this service? And that's where I go back to what David said. It's like getting a second opinion from a doctor. Like, oh, we think you need knee surgery. And then you go to another doctor and like, no, you just need to take this pill for 6 months and you're good. Like, those types of things you need to think about when you're going to do publishing, editing, design work, whatever it is. You just need to consider that if you have prices that are really high or prices that are really low, you need to understand why they're that way.
Yeah. Sorry, I was gonna say also you guys are Americans, so yeah. We've got our healthcare system here. Changes that whole analogy different.
You never get second opinions?
Uh yeah. Well, yeah. I don't know. I don't know if probably not it so much. Unless it was like seriously messed up sounding, right? So
you just take Dr. A, their opinion is gospel, and you just get whatever they tell you.
Yeah, I don't know. It's too late for me to overthink this. Let's go back to the other thing.
So we talked about limited time offer. We talked about contracts being, clear. We talked about prices being too high or too low. You want to be considerate of that. Are there any other warning signs we want to think about before we move on?
I'm sure there's tons.
Yeah. People being too personal, like sliding into your DMs or using your name and book to try to leverage you, I think.
Hey, DC, just back off there. I know where you're going with this.
No, I'm not. If they're targeting you, you want to be able to know why they're targeting you and make sure it's legitimate.
Yes, especially when they're I don't know. I'm maybe a little untrusting of most people, but anytime anyone praises me, I'm like, what are you getting at? What do you want?
Yes.
So, being a little cautious with that. Also, just understanding. Sorry, you want warning signs. Never mind. I have nothing. I have no warning signs.
Yeah, and again, getting a second opinion on everything. Even if it's somebody in the writing community on Twitter that you really trust, who's been around, slide into their DMs and be like, "Hey, here's this thing that I heard, or somebody's offering me this thing. What do you think?" And most of the time, honestly, you pretty much are going to end up rejecting like 90% or 95% of the things that come your way, because it's really people just trying to make a quick buck. It's people that you ended up on a list somewhere, and so they're either sending you something automated or they just want to see if they can take advantage of you. And so you really have to, no has to sort of be your normal, and then yes really has to be things you've put work into and effort. You know exactly what you're getting into, and to say yes to services for your book has to be something very planned and something that with 100%, without any doubt, you're walking into. So I think that's sort of the general rule I want to give people, not because most of the services out there are legitimate. Most of the designers, editors, publishers out there are legitimate, but they're there when you seek them out. Most of them aren't, doing these random emails, random DMs, seeking people out. And so that's the kind of distinction I wanted to make there.
I think another good kind of approach when you're getting these kind of things or you're looking into these kind of things is figuring out who is getting what out of this deal, right? Like, if it seems like you're getting all the win out of it and they're getting nothing, why is that? Because there it should be a fair exchange on both sides. And if it's weighted on one side or the other, be questioning why it's weighted that way. Um, and also going with like any what the line is about social media, that if you're getting it for free, then you are the product, right? So applying that kind of same logic to whenever you're getting a deal that's you're getting it for really cheap or something, how are you being used
Right.
to benefit the other party? Some people are generous. I'm gonna say there are some really good people out there. They will give you free services because they are starting out, or they're generous people. But most of those people are people that um, that you kind of trust already. But even that, I will say, just because you know them a little bit on Twitter, don't be too trusting and
Right.
give too much away. Because, yeah, like until you have the conversation and see their face and all that kind of stuff. But, yeah. Um, you say your thing.
I was just gonna say, any last words before we wrap it up? Mandy, do you
Yeah.
have anything? Okay, well, we appreciate you coming on. What do you have to promote, Mandy? That we do this on every show.
Oh, okay. Can I promote me and someone else?
Please do.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'm gonna promote me. I've got Party Central, of course, and From New York to LA, #2, and then my newest one is Just a Little Frosting, and it just came out this month. So you need to get it because it's cute. So, and it's Christmassy and Hallmarky. I made up
Nice.
that. So, yeah, if you love the little warm fuzzy Hallmark movies and you're reading it and you know it's unrealistic and you know what's going to happen at the end, but you're going to read it anyway because it's super cute, that's my book.
There you go.
And I want to plug another indie author. Hold on, I have the stuff. Sean Fraser.
Oh, nice.
I just I'm rereading these. This is The Call of Chaos, and book 2 is The Coming Storm.
Wow.
Wow.
And,
I've never seen the printed copies of these, so this is nice.
yes.
Yeah.
Hold it up. Yeah.
Right in the center.
Is it in the
Perfect.
center? Do I have it?
Yeah, you got to do it right in the center because everything gets cut off on this.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
That's
Nice.
and then #2,
Yeah, very cool.
The Coming Storm, and then #3.
Is that one new?
This one is the newest one. Yeah, this is
Okay.
Descent into Madness.
Interesting. Okay.
And he just finished #4, and he's editing now. So
Awesome.
Awesome.
let's see. So
I'll put links in the description for those too. So
get Sean's books. They're really awesome. He is great at world building. So
And he's a really great person on the Twitter community. So if you aren't following him, you should.
agreed.
Yeah. I'm gonna actually mention a book that I was kind of thinking this has got me thinking a bit about it. Is Malcolm Gladwell's Talking to Strangers. I'm just working through it, and that learning how to communicate with people we don't know, and it's darker subjects, and it's not about selling or anything like that, but how we miscommunicate or misunderstand not just strangers but people we think we know, how that falls apart. So I think it's something to consider when we're talking about these kind of conversations. So
I will promote a book I started reading. And it's a book that's been out for a little while now, but it's Bits and Pieces by Dawn Hosmer. She's been on the show a couple of times. and I am like a quarter of a way through the book. It's very interesting now. And so my cat is very interested in it too. You get a shot of her because she's super excited.
She had to
And
let you know.
well, exactly. She wants some bits and pieces in her food dish, and I'll get to that. But definitely pick up Dawn's book. That will also be in the description down below. So appreciate Mandy you coming on the show last minute. We really appreciate that, and we appreciate everyone who's watched or listened until this point. So thank you all.
Thanks. Bye.